Welcome to the first episode of Mario Kart Origins. This retrospective series will be going over every Mario Kart game, meaning that it won't only cover the mainline games, but the arcade games, Mario Kart Tour, and Mario Kart Live Home Circuit as well. And in this episode, we'll be taking a look at the game that started it all, Super Mario Kart. Released in 1992 for the SNES, this is a game that started one of gaming's most iconic and beloved series. Super Mario Kart started off as a multiplayer sort of sequel to F-Zero. Originally, the game consisted of generic racing characters, but then they were replaced with Mario characters and it was decided that they fit the game better. Thus, Super Mario Kart was born. What's interesting is that the prototype for it recently leaked, and there were a few differences. For one, the characters looked a bit off model, but that's to be expected, and there were also a few unused tracks and music, but other than that, the game largely remained the same. This game is considered a classic. It's one of the games that defined the SNES. I love the SNES and most games on it have aged like a fine wine. But the question is Super Mario Kart worth going back to today? Or has it aged as well as Donatella Versace? Time to find out. Once you boot up Super Mario Kart, you're greeted to an iconic intro with the classic Super Mario Kart theme and sidewalk chalk drawings. I can't really describe it, but it kinda sets a tone for the whole game. Once you select your mode, it's time to select your character. But how is the roster? I know some people say rosters don't matter in Mario Kart, but I'm of the opinion that they 100% do. It gives players an opportunity to play as characters they usually wouldn't be able to play as, and because that's one of the first choices you have to make in Mario Kart, that's the first thing I'm looking at. With Super Mario Kart's roster, I think it's actually pretty great. You have your mainstays being Mario, Luigi, Peach, Toad, and Yoshi, but this was actually the first game to give Bowser and Koopa a playable appearance. This was also the only Mario Kart to give Donkey Kong Jr. a playable appearance, at least for a very long time. While the roster might seem small now, you have to consider the characters in the Mario series at the time. All these characters were the most popular at the time, and even though Donkey Kong Jr. has been missing in action for nearly 2 decades until now, he was a relevant character back then. It's so cool to see him back in Mario Kart Tour. Literally, when I saw that, I was really shocked. It would have been really cool to see characters like Daisy, Birdo, Shy Guy, Donkey Kong, Wart, and Tatanga, but considering the limitations of the SNES, the roster is fine here. If I was a kid back in 1992, I'd be pretty content with the character roster. And as always, they are separated into different weight classes, but the lightweights are usually the most fun to control. But my favorite character is Donkey Kong Jr. simply because he hasn't been in that many Mario Kart games. So once you select your character, it's time to race. But the question is, how does the game actually play? Super Mario Kart is unlike other Mario Kart games, for better or for worse. The first things you'll notice when playing Super Mario Kart for the first time if you played more recent Mario Karts before are why is the map taking up half the screen and why are the controls so bad? Those aren't good first impressions. For some reason, Nintendo decided to make half the screen the actual game and the other half the map. Imagine if it worked that way in more recent Mario Kart games. Actually, DS7 and 8 with the gamepad did this, but your attention will always be primarily on the top screen. Not only because your focus will instinctively be there, but because the bottom map in the games is far less distracting. Here, it literally looks so similar to the top, not that you get confused with it or anything, but the fact is, it's really distracting. I don't know why it had to be this way. For multiplayer, I get it, but for single player, there's no reason why the map should take up this much space. What, am I watching an episode of Dora or something? And as for the controls, that's something you will be able to get past, and because this game can't render true 3D, it's using Mode 7 to get around it. That means the depth perception you get isn't as good as something you'd find in a 3D game, and timing turns and drifts isn't as easy, but eventually, you'll get the hang of it. By letting go of the gas a little bit when taking sharp turns, I found it made the game a bit smoother to play. That doesn't make the controls good, just a bit smoother to use. But once you get past these two issues, how is the actual game? The gameplay of Super Mario Kart is actually quite different than most other Mario Karts. This one is a good reason though. Even though the game has items, the gameplay puts a lot more emphasis on skill than in later Mario Karts. It's actually not that often you get hit by items, and there's no blue shell either in this game, so no more having a blue shell ruin your race. Items are still important, but here, they aren't nearly as important as they are in a game like Mario Kart 64. I kinda like the more skill-based gameplay. Drifting works differently too. It's really just to make sharp turns on sharp corners. You don't get the boost you do in later games, and not only that, you can actually spin out from drifting. So with the controls not being very good but gameplay being actually quite good, how are the tracks you're actually playing on? Super Mario Kart is different as the tracks have 5 laps and there are 5 tracks per cup instead of the usual 3 laps and 4 tracks we're used to, bringing the total amount to 20, and for the most part, the tracks are fun. They're pretty basic in design and themes, but I would say most themes are pretty good. It is home to Vanilla Lake 1, which is easily the worst Mario Kart track of all time, but I would say most tracks are good and nothing more than that. The problem is the track themes are repeated over and over again. With the exception of Rainbow Road, each track theme has at least 2 track variations, with Mario's Circuit having 4 different variations. So in reality, there's about 8 original tracks, with the rest being variations. That's not saying the tracks are bad. I will give the game credit for a few things. The tracks are mostly based on locations in Super Mario World, and I feel like most Mario Kart games don't take enough inspiration from the mainline games. We haven't seen a track based on Galaxy, 3D World, or Odyssey, and that was disappointing. And also, this was the first Mario Kart game. If a game like Mario Kart 8 had 4 variations of Mario's Circuit, I would tear it apart. But considering the SNES had limitations, that's probably why the themes were reused. It doesn't ruin the game by any means, just makes the tracks less memorable. If I mention Mushroom Gorge, you know exactly what I'm referring to. But Choco Island 2? You probably know what it looks like, but can't exactly remember it through and through. But even with the themes being reused, how's the presentation of the game? The presentation is mostly fine for an SNES game. The biggest problem with it is the map taking up half the screen, but I ranted about that enough. Honestly, most tracks look pretty good. They fit the Mario World theme very well. The only tracks that are unbearable to look at are the Vanilla Lake tracks, simply because the blues are too light and they don't contrast well with the whites. But other than that, everything looks pretty good. I do wish the characters didn't have the black outline and instead look more natural, but overall, everything for the most part looks good. Part of the presentation is also the music, and this is one of the parts where Super Mario Kart really shines even to this day. Even though the tracks might not be all too memorable, the music definitely is. With classics like Donut Plains, Rainbow Road, and the music of Vanilla Lake being the only redeeming aspect of that terrible track, you can't go wrong here. So even if Super Mario Kart has aged poorly in many aspects, the music still remains classic. As we've seen, the gameplay isn't the greatest, and the track selection, while good, isn't the most memorable. But how much content are you getting out of Super Mario Kart? Super Mario Kart has your Mario Kart fundamentals. Single-player races, multiplayer races, time trials, and battle mode. You know what's strange though? Most other Mario Kart games haven't added other modes besides these. You can play up to 2 players in multiplayer, and it's essentially the main game but with a friend. The battle mode is only balloon battle and is between just 2 players, but it's essentially the elimination style of battling, so last man standing. The battle mode is pretty fun. You can actually play it via Switch Online, so if you want some retro multiplayer action during these times where you might not be able to leave your house, it's a pretty good way to do so. Oh, and time trials. Yeah, I was never really into time trials. I like the hectic gameplay Mario Kart is known for, and time trials kinda defeats the purpose of that for me. But if you love time trials, it's the same here as it always has and will be. Except, you can't unlock Funky Kong in this game. We've gone over everything that Super Mario Kart has to offer. The roster is pretty great, the tracks are good for the most part, the gameplay does take some time to get used to, and doesn't feel all that great, but it has the advantage of being a more skill-based Mario Kart. The presentation remains good, and there's a good amount of content for a Mario Kart game. So what's the verdict? I'm sorry to say this, but Super Mario Kart, while leaving a huge impact on gamers and starting the Mario Kart series, has indeed aged as well as Donatello Versace. As I said before, SNES games usually age very well. Games like Super Mario World, Yoshi's Island, the Donkey Kong Country Trilogy, A Link to the Past, Super Metroid, and Earthbound have aged very well. Most SNES classics have, but there are a few games that haven't. You know what all those games have in common? They tried to push the limits of the SNES. A lot of games use things like Mode 7 and Super Effects chips to have a workaround for 3D. At the time, it was truly impressive, but if you've experienced the 3D Mario Kart games like I have before experiencing Super Mario Kart, you'll never be able to fully appreciate it. Think of it this way. You're given a cell phone, and that phone is a Motorola Razr. And I'm not talking about the new one either. The original Motorola Razr from 2004. If you never experienced it, you'd probably say,
"So that's what phones were like back then,"
and then quickly switch back to the smartphone you were using. But if you used one when they were brand new, you'd be able to remember how sleek and premium it felt, how advanced it was. You probably think smartphones are better and are using one today, but you have the full appreciation for it because you experienced it in its heyday. I respect what Super Mario Kart did for the kart racing genre and how it kickstarted the Mario Kart series, but unless I'm looking for some retro fun, I don't find Super Mario Kart all that enjoyable. There are the Mario Kart games I will go back to even with newer entries, which you'll see later in the series, but Super Mario Kart isn't a game I go back to because I love playing it, it's because I'm interested in the history of the Mario Kart series. It's not a bad game by any means, just hasn't aged well, but for a game that came out on a 16-bit system nearly 30 years ago, I can't blame it too much. Well, that about covers it for Super Mario Kart. What have we learned today? we learned that I don't think Super Mario Kart has aged all that well, but I respect it. But the reason it hasn't aged well is mainly because of the hardware it was on. The SNES simply couldn't handle 3D. But about 5 years later, Nintendo released a system that didn't just find a way to make 3D work, they found a way to define 3D gaming. And with their first 3D system came the first 3D Mario Kart. Join me in the next episode of Mario Kart Origins where I'll be covering Mario Kart 64 to find out how well that game has held up. But what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments and keep calm and dada on.